Sketchbooks have always been extremely appealing to me. In retrospect, I think I viewed them as permission to recreate beautiful illustrated worlds within them. And I was shocked that by existing, the sketchbooks actually confirmed that there was indeed a space meant for this, and another whole crowd of people who shared this interest, or the sketchbooks wouldn't be selling, right? But then why did it take me years and years to ever even complete my first sketchbook? And why are so many of us stuck in this strange relationship with our sketchbooks where we are kind of afraid of them? The raw idea of sketchbook is that it is a place where you practice sketching. The old masters had sketchbooks and they were full of unfinished drawings, barely fleshed out ideas and notes. Over time, the idea of sketchbooks has not changed, but taken on another meaning that is slightly misleading, and that is because sometime between then and now, the sketchbook artist was born. I haven't looked up whether it can be considered a movement or a style or even just a practice or a hobby, though I'm quite curious now. However, with the advent of the sketchbook artist, the sketchbook became a sacred place of little masterpieces and spreads that seem casually thrown together with a couple of pencil strokes and a dash of colour. Page after page, like walking through a gallery, those drawings and paintings very often have nothing unfinished about them. The old notion of sketchbook is lost, and the new idea is that you purchase a sketchbook and you have to create a finished, aesthetically pleasing work of art on every spread, and don't you dare leave a page blank, because that is the highest of sins. It means you hesitated, you lacked motivation, you didn't feel inspired. So the sketchbook ceases to be a sketchbook because it no longer contains sketches. And we get so overwhelmed by imposter syndrome that we can't even draw or paint on the first page because we really don't want to spoil the introduction to what is expected to be a treasure to be shown on social media and passed on through generations to remind everyone of who we were. You might have guessed I fell into that trap, hook, line and sinker. If you look through any of my old sketchbooks, they are full of gaps, with the biggest ones being towards the beginning or at the end of the sketchbook. I have to shamefully admit it was a piece of advice I gave on this channel to start your sketchbook in the middle and not at the start, to get rid of that first page fear. But I now actually really don't like that because I like seeing the chronological order things were moving in, and writing the dates of each piece down in the page is something that doesn't work for me as much as seeing it visually. But it gives one a clear idea of my way of thinking. I was suggesting to start in the middle because that first page is so scary, and I was reinforcing that concept by giving that advice. So I take it back. Start on the first page, please. I think it would be very healthy for us to all go back to the old notion of sketchbook, the one that makes more sense. It's a place to toss ideas at, and even if your goal secretly remains to create beautiful spreads, there is still a way of doing that even if you are a complete beginner. If you're drawing, allow the drawings to overlap slightly as you work in your sketchbook. This will instantly create two things in one: a more pleasing and interesting appearance, which will satisfy your criticising eye, and a storyline. I learned to let go of the fear through working in the Sketchbook Lab tier over on my Patreon. Getting together every Tuesday to co-sketch with my online community made me lose sight of my expectations, and that is a good thing, not a bad thing. With different monthly themes, there were just some subjects I was not really great at, to put it mildly. So if my drawings weren't great, well, of course they weren't. I had no proper practice. But parallel to that, I was building the practice of working inside sketchbooks for our co-sketching sessions. The repetition of that normalised that activity and calmed my artistic perfectionism. Because when something becomes part of your routine, it just becomes another thing, and a pleasant one at that. And instead of dreading it, you start looking forward to it. Instead of fearing it, you start feeling excitement. If you're feeling that fear, you are using your sketchbook wrong. And where in many artistic areas there is no wrong or right, if the fear is stopping you, then here there is a wrong or right approach, if anything else. The friction between you and your sketchbook practice has to be smoothed out. I think challenges are a really good idea because at least for a span of time, there's a sprint in your work where you have to go back every day or every week to continue the challenge. At the end of the challenge, you'll notice an improvement in your skills, and that will feed your desire to keep creating. And that turns into a self-reinforcing beneficial chain, or what some call the virtuous circle, as opposed to the vicious circle. Another simple thing to do is to just detach yourself from your sketchbook. Detach from it emotionally, especially when it's new or hardly ever been used. Just look at it as an object. 2 cardboard covers and a bunch of pages glued or stitched in the middle. Just an object. In time, you will build that fondness towards this object again when you start filling it, when you will notice characters, ideas and styles start to appear or show up time and time again, showing you the path you want to go towards, which is so often unclear to us when we are starting or restarting to make art. Trial and error. I would write that line on the front of every sketchbook. Trial and error. It's through both that we learn, but often even more through error, mistakes, that we create something that we like. Like the black outline on my rabbit started out from a mistake, and then I really liked how it has that look as if it's almost been pasted on after, as if it doesn't quite belong in the spread, but then also in a funny way it kind of does. And mix your styles, go basic, as I have done with the more simplified horse and the simpler figures. That can feel like a safe space to stay for a while if you're starting out, or if you feel like you're more of a beginner, or it might be your style and you will stick with it. And since your sketchbook will become a laboratory of ideas, possibly for larger pieces or complete paintings, then please keep them separate. That is obvious if you paint on canvases or larger sheets of watercolour paper, but not so much if you still like having those pieces in sketchbooks. Make that the sketchbook of your finished paintings and keep the other one for what it is meant for, de-stressing and exploring fearlessly. And sorry, by the way, some footage got cut out here, but this is not my most exploratory and raw sketchbook, neither of them are. I have shown those in the past and I hope to show them again in the next episode, as I am excited for you to see what I have been doing. Over on Patreon in the Sketchbook Lab tier, we experiment with a completely playful approach by co-sketching on Tuesdays, while in the Art Studio, which is the other tier on my Patreon, we create the finished work. I think splitting the two approaches, physically or virtually, placing them in two different rooms, helps with how you show up to your art practice. One is playful, and the other one, while still being playful, is something we are going to start and complete in one session, so slightly different and slow-paced and reflectful. I am so glad I opened up my sketchbook, my poor sketchbook, to more options, and that includes experimenting with mixed media. It has really lowered the bar for how I use these wonderful tools. Also remember, your finished painting sketchbook is not really a sketchbook. It is a book of paintings. Do you see the difference? Finished painting sketchbooks are always a bit more difficult to maintain. Raw exploratory sketchbooks are easier and possibly more fun to keep. But it's important to keep in mind that they require different approaches. Remember the word sketch and what it means, and keep that in the front of your mind. And if you want to work your way up to one of those aesthetically pleasing spread after spread situations, then you will still have to go through raw and playful sketchbooking to get there. Let's call it your stepping stone. So, have you been using your sketchbook wrong? Let me know in the comments. I will see you all in our next live session over on Patreon or next Sunday here on YouTube. Bye for now.